This week we're talking about internal goals, which are the character's emotional goals. Just like the external goals in the series we did before about plot, the internal goals are set off by the catalyst, the trouble that starts in your character's life. That trouble that comes zooming into their life means they have to change the way they are doing things, both externally, like in the actions that they have, and internally in the emotions and reactions that they have. And also be sure to download the free internal plot plan that I've got on my website. The link is down below and in my bio. Now let's get into some specifics. First, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of this series. Now, I'm going to stick with the same movies that I used in the other series because I want you to kind of see how all of it interconnects. So I'm going to talk about Shrek again. Shrek does not think about this, but Shrek wants to avoid people because why? Because people hurt him. So he has secreted himself away in his little ogre hut because he doesn't want to be around people. What is he forced to do in order to get his external goal of having a swamp pack? He's got to go see people. He's got to hang out with Donkey. He's got to rescue the princess. At every single turn in Shrek, he has to open up a little bit more of himself in order to get his goal of getting his solitude back. So go back to part 1 to where you thought about what the trouble was that sets off your whole book. And I want you to think about how is that going to change things for your character emotionally? What fears does this moment awaken in your character? So when your book starts out, your character needs to have an internal emotional goal, but they may not know what it is. That's something I talked about in the last video. What do they want deep down inside emotionally? That is their internal goal. If it's acceptance or love or revenge or whatever it happens to be, whatever emotion is at the center of that. That forms their internal goal. For Liam Neeson in Taken, the trouble comes when his daughter is kidnapped. That sets him off into an entire trajectory of trying to find her. But what does that do to him emotionally? Well, remember at the very, very beginning of the movie, he's going to the door and he's going to surprise his daughter with something that's basically an olive branch because he's trying to make up for not being there for her in the beginning. His daughter being kidnapped while he's not there is probably one of his deepest fears because he's kind of a protector. And what has he done as a father? In his head, he has failed. That just adds to his internal guilt and just adds to the whole thing about how he feels like he wasn't there for his family. Because when he wasn't there, his daughter got kidnapped. So do you see how that interrelates? What is he trying to do throughout the entire movie? He's trying to bring her back. He's trying to rescue her. He's trying to be there for her. Ding, 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 ding. That external plot becomes the internal plot. In order to rescue his daughter, he's got to do the thing that he hasn't done, that he is beating himself up for at the beginning of the movie. He has to be there for his daughter. He has to think like his daughter. He has to go through the clues that his daughter left him. All of these things. Emotionally, he is continually confronting his guilt and his regrets. But he overcomes those enough to do the external actions that take him closer to finding her. In order to figure out your internal goal for your character, you got to go back to those deep emotional wounds and the impact they had on your character. Now look at your trouble and put them together and see how those two things relate. I guarantee there's a way that they do. So it's going to make your character confront some kind of fear or trauma or anxiety. For Shrek, it's being loved for who he is as he is. Same thing with Edward in Pretty Woman. And then in Die Hard and in Taken, it's repair the relationships, make up for the past, those kinds of things. Everything that happens in those movies is all about those particular internal emotional goals. For your writing exercise, I want you to come up with your character's internal goal. If you're having trouble with this, let's step back and look at Pretty Woman for a second. Edward's internal goal at the beginning of the movie, and he actually says it out loud, is to avoid any emotional entanglements.
A date is business.
We don't know why, we don't know what his motivation is, and that's going to be video too, which is why he hires Vivian, who's a prostitute. To him, that's going to have no emotion involved. It's a business transaction. That is how he has operated his whole life. What impacted him in his past? What deep emotional wound does he have that has created within him a need to avoid emotional entanglements? He is in that scene in the bathtub where he talks about his relationship with his father, and you can tell that it still pains him. That is a deep emotional wound for him. That is something in his backstory that has created his inability to get close to people. But remember how I said that the character's not really aware of their internal goals? Edward says that's his internal goal. But what his real secret, deep down in his soul internal goal is to be loved for who he is. Nobody has loved the Edward inside, the ogre inside, right? Vivian sees that person. And as Vivian gets closer to Edward and Edward gets closer to her, it makes him react in ways that push her away sometimes because he is so afraid of not being loved for who he is. And you can see that in every single scene. What's he do at the end of Pretty Woman? He sends Vivian home.
Hurt me.
Yes.
Don't do it again.
He goes back to his place of safety and security where he's not going to be hurt. But then he realizes that he loves her. And in order to get her, he has to overcome his internal and physical fears by climbing that ladder. So here's another big takeaway. Every external action that the character takes should intertwine with their internal story in some way, because that action awakens their deepest fears, causes them to see themselves in a new light, or exposes insecurities and doubt. It gets at the heart of everything that really bothers your character. Liam Neeson finds the wrong girl, and it seems like maybe his daughter is dead. So all of these feed into his fears and doubts and insecurities and deep emotional wounds that he was not there for his family when they needed him. By planning all of this interconnectivity, you create a plot that naturally raises the stakes, where things get worse and worse and worse until they finally resolve when the character grows and changes and earns their happy ending.
Jumpstart your writing.